Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And I've got Jiulio Consiglio here today, and we're going to talk about opening your third eye. So you guys, if you're interested in opening up to the divine and opening up to some more messages, this is going to be a really fun and interesting show to watch. So make sure you share it with your friends and definitely hit that subscribe button because it does help me. Now, before I bring him on, I want to talk about something that just came across recently, just like 45 minutes ago. It's about the border crisis, and looks like Graham has called on Biden to appoint Jen Johnson as the border czar, he calls it. So he's saying Representative Henry Culler and Senator Lindsey Graham urged President Biden on Friday, and this happened like an hour ago, 45 minutes ago. They urged President Biden on Friday to name Obama-era Department of Homeland Security Jeb Johnson to a special role focusing on dealing with migrants at the border. And they're saying that it's gotten so terrible that they need somebody to take action. This has gone on for 6 months. People are just streaming across the border. It says neither Graham have discussed their proposition with Johnson or know if he would be interested in the job, but they told reporters that they would accept someone with similar credentials. So they're just trying to get something done because it's a mess down there, you guys. It's just there seems like there's no end to it. So I want to bring that up because I just think it's really important that we all know what's happening at our U.S.-Mexico border. The other thing I want to bring up, here's some good news for today. So a wildlife fan who set up a camera in a bird box to film a family of looks like blue tights, were stunned when 43-year-old John Chaddock started live streaming the footage of the birds. Their chicks were so in love. They have pictures. Look at these two birds, you guys. Isn't this great? And they have this whole thing going on where it's live and they can see what's going on with these birds, and all the neighbors and friends have come on. And there's been like millions of people that have watched these lovebirds. Look at this. This is awesome. So anyway, that's my good news for today. So there you have it. Hey, listen, I want to bring Jiulio on, and let me give you some of his background. He's a spiritual teacher. He's an author who focuses on transformative powers of inner stillness, the mind, body, spirit connection, and psychic ability development. He's right up our alley, you guys. His message is that there is life beyond fear and instant thinking, and it's found in the dimensions of inner stillness. And Jiulio currently offers his consciousness-based teachings to individuals and groups. Welcome to High Road to Humanity, Jiulio.
Thank you for having me, Nancy. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm excited that you're here, and I want to read something before you tell your story. You guys, this is the introduction. I'm going to read this really quick out of his book. Listen to this. There isn't a human being on the planet that doesn't have some level of psychic ability. It's simply encoded within us, he says. It's just a part of who we are as spiritual beings. I should mention this right from the start. It's not so much that the third eye and all its spiritual faculties are dormant within us, but rather that most people are unaware of it and its capabilities due to the veil of this world and the physical senses. We have been given a very powerful gift, but without opening it, without activating it and developing it, we close ourselves off to potential possibilities and fulfillment of our life's purpose. Wow. Tell us your story. How did you figure this out?
I took the long, hard road to activating the third eye, but it doesn't need to be that way. I grew up in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and I was educated in the United States,
Okay.
And upon starting my schooling there, I remember walking into class and just being bombarded by a lot of negative energy. It was like walking into a sauna, and I really didn't understand what was going on yet.
Okay.
I grew up working in my dad's hardware store, dealing with people. Never experienced anything like this as a kid or as a teenager. So I pushed through and I graduated dental hygiene, went on to become an instructor as well at a
Mm-hmm.
local college. And I was continuously feeling these uneasy feelings. I felt incredibly sensitive to the energy around me and that of others.
Mm-hmm.
So time passed, and by the time I hit 24, I had my older brother, Steve, who suddenly got diagnosed with cancer,
Oh, wow.
and he battled for about a year and passed away at 33.
Yeah.
So that is uh, traumatic to say the least, and it left me with a lot of questions. I tried to move forward and eventually married my high school sweetheart,
Oh.
only to see that crumble 15 months later.
Yeah, I read that in your book. You went through divorce, you went through cancer. Yeah. And then tell the audience what happened.
So following that, the year later, I had a cancer diagnosis. Now you would think that would be enough to create a shift, but it was actually my evening. I had an evening with a night terror, and
I
that was the
know.
final straw.
Tell the story. Do you mind?
No, no, absolutely. So I went to bed one night, and I've always been a light sleeper, and at around 3 a.m. I was suddenly alarmed by this presence, this very negative feeling hovering above me. As I looked at my bed sheets, I can remember them being pulled off me. So I sat up, startled,
Mm-hmm.
and more in shock than anything else. I don't even want to say I was afraid, shocked what was
Mm-hmm.
going on. Went downstairs, said a few prayers. When I went back to my bedroom to get ready for work at the dental office for the next day, I could still sense it around the threshold. So I walked past it and essentially told it to take a hike, jumped in the shower, and that's when I called out. And that's when I sort of hit my low. I needed to know, I needed to have another way because I couldn't continue with this.
Did you ask God for help?
Exactly. So I literally called out, show me another way, because the emotional pain and everything I'd gone through
Right.
those years of dealing with negative energy, I needed answers.
Right. Well, and so you started to search, and that's how you started to realize about our chakras. Did you start to learn about the spirituality? Did you start meditating? What did you do?
No, so what happened was uh, about a few weeks went by, and I had been staring at a book by Dr. Daniel Amen of all names,
I know,
and
I
I
read
finally
that.
I finally bought it, and there was a phrase in that book. I didn't get past page 66, something like that in that book,
Yeah.
and the sentence went something like, "When you allow negative thoughts to go unchallenged," well, that struck a massive chord in me. So what happened was I went to work one day and I had the book in my car, and
Mhm.
I had a patient cancel. And what I would do is jump in my car, drive off to a side street and try to relax.
Right.
Because you're dealing with people that are experiencing a lot of fear in that environment. So I wanted a
Mhm.
break. And as I began to reflect on that statement, a voice as audible as anything else came through my chest and said, challenge your thoughts. And in that instant, my forehead began to vibrate intensely. And I can remember clearly turning my head and experiencing what I would call clarity.
Mhm. Challenge your negative thoughts. Yeah, I just, that's true. And I want to talk about that today. Challenge your thoughts because we have to, I'm working on it myself. I'm reprogramming. I call it reprogramming, but I love how you talk about this. You say clarity became my friend, and I realized the power that comes from living in the moment.
So coming into this world, and I want to emphasize this, there's nothing wrong with the third dimension or ego consciousness that we
Right.
experience. We have to experience that in order to to shift and evolve.
Right.
But what I found, what I was stuck was between the past and the future, and that's what that dimension of consciousness offers. So the way to transcend that and to begin to transcend that is to realize the reality of the present moment. And what that moment is essentially also is the ascension ladder to higher frequencies and dimensions of consciousness.
When you live in the now, when you live in the moment. Now, was it hard for you? So you had to make a conscious effort? Because I mean, I've had to make a conscious effort and I still have to bring myself back. Do you have that as well? Is it a constant for you?
Uh, I have to say, when the third eye was activated, I was in a surrendered state.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even trying to shut off negativity at that moment. It
Right.
took over. I describe it as a force. And once I moved out of the way, it's like my soul took over and just automatically began to shut it down.
Right. And that's why this was such an important thing so the negativity from your cancer, which was probably caused by negativity, and you held it all in, which is what caused this disease in the body and all of that. It's hard to let go as well when you have a divorce. I will say that it's hard to forgive and it's hard to move forward. So all of that, what you're saying is all of that stuff that had built up once your third eye opened, then it just kind of melted away, is what you're telling me.
That's, I would say exactly that, or
Okay.
dissolved. And I began experiencing, for example, with regards to that failed marriage, just radical forgiveness. I was
Yeah.
giving out forgiveness like it was candy on
I
Halloween.
love it. Hey, we got to go to commercial break. You guys, I'm here today with Jiulio Consiglio. His book is called Open Your Third Eye, Activate Your Sixth Chakra, and Develop Your Psychic Abilities. Okay. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Jiulio Consiglio. His book is called Open Your Third Eye. And what I want to talk to you about really quick is connecting, and that's why I do this show, so that we all start to learn to connect to the information, to the divine, to God, however you want to, talk about this. And I just think it's really important that people you started to say that we're getting on the break, that we're getting to a point where everybody's going to connect. Talk about that a minute.
So the challenges that we're seeing in the collective right now is actually a reflection of individual consciousness. So life is always speaking to us.
Mhm.
And when we allow those messages to go unheard, they do get louder and louder. And that's just coming from my own experience.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing right now is unresolved aspects of the collective consciousness, which again is a reflection of our individual. So what the universe is saying to us is the way we've been operating in third dimensional consciousness, which is the belief in separation from each other, from everyone else, and from source, that's not working. So it's a wake-up call to remember who we are, take responsibility, and consciously manifest our reality.
Right. Because we have that ability. We're little manifestors. And I tell people that all the time, and it's hard I will say this, I've gotten to a point now, I'm like to the point where I've let go and let God handle things and know that everything's going to be okay. And I don't have to worry. Because when you do your life purpose, when you're living your life purpose, you just kind of let go and everything's okay. What do you think?
I find I couldn't agree with you more. I find that when we're trying to control situations or resisting circumstances, we're actually perpetuating them. So it's actually realizing that circumstances, for the most part, are temporary, they're temporal, because it's the way we perceive them. So third dimensional consciousness or ego consciousness is we are living from the outside in.
Right.
And in 5D, we are living from the inside out.
Right. I want to go back to the negative thinking because a lot of people, and you give an exercise in your book, you say how to change negative thinking, and then you have a challenge on negative thinking exercise. Can you tell the audience that would be something that would help people, I think, how to do that?
Absolutely. So the first step is to become aware. Awareness is everything. So it's first is becoming aware and conscious when you're experiencing an automatic negative thought. They will tend to arise as either fear, uncertainty, doubt, anything, anger. So the first step is to observe it, become aware of it. Now you have a choice. We can react to it and thereby energizing the egoic or thinking mind and perpetuating that, what I describe as suffering.
Right.
Or we can begin to observe it. And this is what's really important is, and we've been conditioned to think if we hold things in, it's not healthy. But the power and the consciousness which is within us, which is unconditional love, that is our inner being,
Right.
is more than capable of able to alchemize and transmute that. So observing, realizing that that is the thinking mind,
Mhm.
and most times it's based in fear. And I like to see fear as essentially illusory in nature relative to our spiritual being, which is unchanging, that inner stillness. So the thinking mind is always changing, always perceiving, becoming aware of that, observing, and then challenging it. So if the thought comes, I'm stuck, I'm never going to get ahead, you observe it through non-reaction, you let that go, and then you place the conscious thought, I'm already moving forward in my life,
Right.
starting with that I am.
I like that. Well, I'm into affirmations, and I say affirmations every day. I just do. And I always feel better after I say them too, and my affirmations change. But it's that energy of, and it's what I believe, it's the energy that you're putting out to the universe, and you do get back what you put out. And I love what you're talking about with the negative thoughts, because I get that, and it happens a lot. And what happens, I think, well, I know, is that it's like your mind holds on to these things until you can reprogram it out. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
That's, yeah. And some of this stuff's come from childhood.
Yes, we hang
Yeah.
on to memories and events, and that's what the thinking mind does. It collects and stores. So becoming conscious of it is the first step of creating that space between who you truly are
Mhm.
and that thinking mind. That's awareness.
Right. Well, and it's living in a higher dimension, and you write in here, and you have some affirmations. You have, I am happy, I am grateful for this. So when a bad thought comes in, you just change it to a positive thought, and that's what you've gotten to do. I want to talk a little bit, and I want to understand something. My daughter was on the phone with me yesterday, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to have this gentleman on, and we're going to talk about the third eye." And she goes, "That's coming through. It's the soft spot on babies." And I said, "Really?" And I never thought about that. And she said, "The soft spot on babies' heads when they're little, it's still open. And that's why they're still intuitive." And she goes, "A lot of people call that the third eye." And I thought about it. And I was going to ask you about what you thought. I thought about it because when I meditate, and I'm like you have clear cognizance like I do. We have a clear knowing of things. And I pick up that you're an empath too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. But
It's okay.
I'm not reading you. I just know.
No, that's
But what do you think? Because and the reason I'm asking you with this is because my information comes from God directly through my crown chakra. It doesn't come through my third eye. It comes through my head. So what's the difference?
what I would say, and I don't mean to read you, but your third eye is already open, so it's instant. The downloads are instant.
I
So
know.
it's just that it's just that
Julio.
awareness. So it's essentially that doorway to expanded consciousness. And
Okay.
I like to make this. I like to remind people that wisdom essentially is a one-way street from source energy to the
You
local
betcha.
conscious mind.
That's exactly right. And don't you feel fortunate? I will just say this. I feel so blessed that I have a connection with God and I know things.
It helps you literally in everyday life. The discernment that comes from it, being able to read a situation or a room. I've had some experiences that are just unimaginable. But the last few years, I've had so many psychic events happen. I couldn't keep these to myself anymore, and this is why I had to write this book.
And that's why you wrote the book. Yeah. Well, and you say in here, intention leads to clear focus, clarity. You start talking about that. Talk about that a little bit, the intention.
Intention is important because it clears everything up in terms of what you want to create in your life, and
Mhm.
it directs you, it directs the mind to that which you want to, create in your life. So if we are living without vision, without intention, you're sort of like a ship without a sail. You're sort of bobbing left and right. So we want to create a vision in our lives, and you want to come from a space that any and all things are possible. And when
Right.
you're connected with source, you
Mhm.
understand that.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. I want to go back really quick. I wrote down a quote. You were talking about response versus reaction, which this is really when you evolve and you start to open up, you look at things differently. And you say a powerful energy shifting way to bring you closer to chakra activation, responding rather than reacting. And because that's what, when you're in 3D, you react. When you're in 5D, you respond.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
responding to life's situations or life circumstances or your own thoughts, responding through awareness and observation, that aligns you closer to the seat of the soul, which is the third eye. The more one reacts to situations and their own thinking is pulling us further and further away from our inner being and into that lower frequency.
Yeah, and I don't like being, and it's funny, we've talked about there's different levels of where you're at, 5D, 6D, 7D, it goes all the way up. So it's a whole situation. Hey, listen, I want to know, tell people, we've got about 3 minutes. I hate to do this to you, but start to talk about how people can activate their sixth chakra.
Well, some of the key points are become very aware of the present moment, the now moment, because that is the ascension ladder. If we are too attached to that past and future, that keeps us in third dimensional reality. The other thing
Okay.
I'll say is that practice of becoming aware when you're experiencing automatic negative thought and then challenging it. In my own experience, when I began to open up that third eye, it automatically shut down negative thoughts. So when you begin to challenge it, you're planting that seed to activate and allow potential, which is a third eye in the quantum field, to possibility. There is already an enlightened being within each and every one of us, and
Right.
it's already a reality in that quantum field.
And I'll just say, I'll just tell everybody, you're much happier once you do this.
Absolutely. You can
Like,
call it forth.
yeah, I'm just like a happy person. I'm much happier than I was before, and it's true. And I don't think people realize that. Hey, listen, we got to go to commercial break. I'm here today with Jiulio Consiglio. His book is called Open Your Third Eye. How do people get in touch with you?
I'm on Instagram, so that's JiulioConsiglio, as well
Okay.
as Twitter and Facebook.
Okay, fantastic. You guys, this is Nancy. You're out. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. Okay. Hi, this is Nancy You're out, and this is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Jiulio Consiglio, and he was telling me about his last name, and it means to give counsel.
Yeah, in Italian.
That's wonderful. I love it. I love it. You were talking about how many brothers and sisters do you have?
So I had an older brother and one older
Mhm.
sister and one younger sister.
Okay, and they have your abilities?
They are all pretty intuitive and pretty aware. I, all of us coming in, I want to say, this is going back as far as I can see. We all were quite sort of in tune with our environments and quite aware.
Okay. When did your parents realize that you guys, or were your parents intuitive as well?
You know what? I think it comes from my father's side. My grandmother was very spiritual. Um,
Mhm.
but my dad, by the time I was 7, my dad was already treating me as an adult. He thought this kid can do anything. So I was opening up the hardware store at age 7 by myself, cutting
Wow.
keys and so
Well, because you were an evolved soul that came in and you were ahead of your time.
I think he probably saw something like that. So he figured,
Mhm.
Julio can work on his own.
And it's funny because I think I scared my parents. I do, because they probably thought, how does this kid know what's going on? I think it's funny, actually.
That probably happened with us a few times as well.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because your dad, he gave you a little bit more, you said you're only 7, but he saw the maturity level that was there in the intelligence and the wisdom that you held. So that's what I'm talking about there. Yeah. So, continue on. Tell people if they're sitting at home and they're like, okay, I've meditated and I can't seem to get my third eye open. Talk to people. I mean, I've heard that from a lot of people. Well, I just can't do it. I can't sit that long. And, you know,
I could say a few things to that. The first thing is awareness is everything. So that 5D consciousness, that inner stillness, which is that frequency of 5D, it's a matter of being aware of it. So the moment you begin to become conscious of your automatic negative thoughts, the next step is to become aware of the awareness that is aware of that automatic negative thought. It's becoming aware of the awareness that is aware of the automatic negative thought. That could leapfrog someone. So just that awareness. Second thing is, don't try to meditate. Just tune into that master meditator that's already within us. That mind is perfectly silent always. That's the mind of source. So change your focus from ego, and raise it by the awareness of the now, and become aware of that ever-present stillness. There is a master meditator within all of us. It's just tuning into it.
it is. And you don't have to sit for a long time. I'll just say that. I connect in the morning, I say my prayers and I connect and I say, okay, I always ask, what do I need to know today? I get my message, I ground myself and I move forward. I don't know. And it's quick now, probably quicker than it should be, but you have the same gifts that I have, which is interesting. So do you have the same thing where you meditate, but not for a long time?
I essentially just sort of tune in and check in, and then from there, I just sort of allow the day to unfold. But
Yeah.
I basically say to people, anything could be made a meditation. You could be washing dishes and just be in the moment. That's a meditation. Anything
Yeah.
where you're just focused and present, that's a meditation.
Yeah. Now, why did you decide to finally write this book? What motivated you to put all this down? Because it's a good book, by the way. I just want to say that, by the way, you guys, there's exercises in here. He goes through this step by step. It's really very good. What made you finally say, I'm going to do this?
First, let me say you're very gracious and kind. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I was I've been having psychic events happen to me since I was about 18 or 19.
Tell us some. Tell us some.
Oh,
I want to hear. Tell some stories.
Absolutely. So when I was studying in the United States, I was dating my high school sweetheart, and she was still back home in Canada. And one day, while walking to school, a stranger started to follow her, and next thing you know, he's chasing her into the school. So she calls me later in the day, frantic that someone was sort of harassing her. So I felt hopeless. So it sort of became worse, and the phone calls were coming in now, harassing phone calls and things like that.
So he was stalking her.
So he was stalking her. So it got to the point where police and the local phone company were actually tapping the calls. So she called me one day, and I was in the States, and she said, good news. She said, we found out where the calls are coming from. I said, great. Tell me where. Because I was coming home every weekend, actually, Nancy, to try to find this guy.
I know. I read your story.
Yeah.
This is a good story.
So, and I grew up in downtown Hamilton. I've never once started a fight, but we studied martial arts for years. But we back then in the 90s, if there was an issue, a lot of times things were settled with fists. It is what it was. So I just wanted to speak to this individual if I had a chance and say, listen, this has to end. So she wouldn't tell me, we're on the phone, she wouldn't tell me where the calls are coming from. And what I'll describe as a moment of insight, I felt energy shoot down my spine and back up. And I immediately saw, in the shape of an eye, Barton and Lottridge. I saw the intersection right in front of me. So I screamed out, Barton and Lottridge, I'm coming down. She dropped the phone because she couldn't believe that I picked up.
You knew.
The calls.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you went there. Tell about what happened. Yeah.
So
it's better, you guys.
So what happened was her brother ended up, it was actually her mother. Her mother was quite intuitive as well. Her mother walking, he was actually making the phone calls from a mile away from where he lived, so he couldn't be sort of found out. But her mother that week went for a walk, and saw an individual sitting on a balcony above an old closed down hardware store. And she intuitively knew. So I got the call. I was in town. I went down there with her brother, and he was just basically, he wasn't there to help me. He was there to sort of control me. And I got out of the car, and in no uncertain terms, I said to him, "You need to leave her alone, and you need to stop this right now."
You didn't say it out loud.
I didn't say it loud. No, no, no. So, needless to say, when I went and checked the next day with the landlord, I think it was a day or two later, he had moved out. He just cleared out. So,
See, I thought
and,
that was interesting that you said it telepathically to him.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. No,
That's
I
what
was.
really caught me. I was like, whoa, he didn't say anything to him. You just looked at him and thought it.
Well, actually, I was vocal, but
Okay.
what I was saying in my mind, he must have picked up on it because he moved out of the apartment within 24 to 48 hours. He was
And you never heard from this guy, and she never
never
saw him
again,
again.
never again. She went back
Yeah.
to being her, happy-go-lucky self.
Now, have you had any, you had the dark entity in your bedroom and you told it to go. Have you had any entities try to get in your way since you've been doing this work?
Well, it's interesting. A couple of years after my shift, I moved into a semi in the town called Aldershot,
What's
and
a semi?
a semi, so two houses joined together,
Oh, we call it
and
a
it was
duplex. Okay. A
yeah, and
semi. I like
yeah,
that.
semi, and it was across the street from a cemetery, and you know, I dedicated essentially a chapter on the paranormal in this book. I could have probably written a book just on the paranormal because that area was a hub. But the difference this time around is when I experienced these things, I just observed them with awareness. But it astounded me what I experienced. Regardless of the consciousness I'm operating with, it's still, there's that human aspect that's just shocking, what you experience, but there's no fear involved.
Right. So what shocked you?
What shocked me was one day, I love, when I can, I love to read. So I went out one day, 4 o'clock in the middle of the afternoon. I believe it was a fall day. And I glanced over to the right to my neighbor's side of the house as I stepped out of my townhouse. And I saw a full bodied, black covered head to toe apparition looking into his blinds, through his
Oh,
blinds. And I estimate it was female, 6.5 to 7 feet in length. I can still remember the wispiness of the dress. And when it turned, the anger that came over it and seeing the whites of its eyes spoke volumes to me that they're curious. And instantly she began to sort of circle and circle and circle, and she vanished in front of me. Needless to say, I lived there another 6 months or a year, and I kept my blinds closed for that time, not out of fear. It's just the thought of something looking into my unit just sort of
mhm.
didn't sit well. But
Do you think it was more of a curiosity than anything?
it was absolutely curious, and I didn't feel anything negative from it. But I just
It
I
was
knew
creepy.
already.
It
It
was
was creepy.
creepy.
It was
Yeah.
creepy, and I knew anything is possible before that happened. That sort of
Right.
just confirmed, the spiritual realm, and consciousness for me.
Yeah, and I'll just talk about that if it's okay for a second, and I want to know what you think. I've learned since I've become very, very, very intuitive over the last few years, I even more so than I was when I was a kid, people come to me all the time and they're stuck between they have died and they haven't gone on and they see my light. So they come to me and they're like, hey, and I know they're there. I usually ask them who they are. And then I send them to the light and they're very grateful. It's nice. It's kind of a good experience, but it's hard to tell a lot of people. Of course, my audience knows. I tell my audience all the time. But do you have those things happen to you where you send people to the light since you've become so enlightened?
I haven't had those experiences yet, but I've had friends who I've met, let's say for coffee, parents who have come by and just appeared to me in a vision, and I'm
Mhm.
describing them with perfect accuracy, physically. I mentioned in the book, being a medium is not my calling, but I can certainly teach that to someone because it all is an expression of clarity that one
Mhm.
has. But
Right.
I haven't had that experience yet I've had experiences with shadow people, and I understand them tremendously well.
Ooh, let's talk about that when we come back from commercial break. Hey, you
Sounds
guys.
great.
Yes, I'm here today with Jiulio Consiglio. His book is called Open Your Third Eye. This is Nancy Earlt. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Jiulio Consiglio. I want to know, Julio, about the shadow people. I hear this a lot. Talk to us. Tell the audience about this, because I don't know a ton about it. I will say this, and I don't want to bring any bad in, but I've got a lot of I will say they try to stop me because they see the work I'm doing, but I'm very protected. I will say that. Continue. What would you say about the shadow people?
So in terms of shadow people, so we come into this world, we take on a physical body
Right?
as souls, and we take on an ego. Well, as time passes, we energize that ego, that shadow self. So when a person passes, we leave behind the two densest aspects. We leave the physical body behind, and we leave that ego shadow behind. So as beautiful as this world is, I also like to sort of describe it as a spiritual landfill, because wherever a person passes, that's where that egoic shadow is left behind. And those
Interesting.
are the shadows that we experience. And we will see them, for example, in cemeteries, because they are attached to the body. So they are attachment, by nature. And they are
Energetically, you're saying when
energy.
somebody
Exactly.
dies, the spirit goes and the energy that was connected to that body, the ego part stays. Now that's interesting.
Absolutely. Because where the soul goes, the ego cannot follow. It's just
That's
another
true.
dimension of consciousness.
Wow, I never thought of it like that.
It would actually be consumed by the light of consciousness. So they stay in this reality. They can form attachments. They can, haunt houses if they're attached to a house. And I had an experience just as I was finishing this book with when I was about to purchase a home.
Okay.
And
Tell
it,
us.
it it really caught me off guard. It taught me many things. I'll tell you real quick, is that it
Okay.
taught me not to ignore when you get those intuitive feelings. So a few months back, I wanted to purchase, it was like a nice little farmhouse about 2 hours away from me. And
Cool.
I asked a few questions, and the realtor seemed nice. And because of all the restrictions, she said, I'll let you into the house, and I'll walk through the house. I'll wait for you in the backyard. So I
Okay.
walked in, and I immediately went to the family room on the left, and it felt
She didn't want to
neutral.
go in. Sorry, I'm going to say that. She didn't want to go in that house.
Bingo. Yes, you're reading
Oh
her
my
lips fast.
God. Oh, I'm
Absolutely.
sorry. I'm
So
sorry.
no, and feel free to jump in, because so she walked in, went straight down the hallway into the backyard. So I went into the first room, the family room on the left, and then a big master bedroom was right behind it. So I walk in there, and I turn the lights on, and there's two big lights in there, Nancy, and it still looked dark. The other thing that struck me when I walked in there, I sensed anger, fear, and literally the smell of death. That's
Oh
how I can
God.
describe it. So I'm trying to ignore it because I love the house, I love the look. I
Yeah,
have
but
my
you can't.
little,
Oh my
but
God.
I'm ignoring it. So I have my little electrical receptacle tester, because I grew up in hardware, so I'm checking, the electricity, and I'm
Sure.
doing measurements.
Yeah.
So I go to the other rooms; they feel neutral. I walk into to the garage in the back, which was separate. And when I walked in there, I felt very unwelcomed, almost as if like, what are you doing here? So I even wanted to ignore that. Next thing I know, she's back there, and I'm being guided to go back to that room. My guides are just guiding me back. So I go back in there. Again, she stays in the hallway. She doesn't come anywhere near that room. And I got hit a second time. And when it hit me, the negativity in that room, the thought that came to me was, I couldn't stay here 5 minutes, let alone a night.
Somebody
So
was killed or what? I feel that.
so I called out to the realtor, and I said, did someone die in this house?
Mm-hmm.
Did someone die in this room? I
Mm-hmm.
could sense her reaction. She came around, she was red as a pepper, and she said, I'm actually selling this house for my best friend's parents. They both died of cancer within a few weeks of each other in this room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so were you able to clear it? Did you know how to clear it at that time, or did you know anybody that could clear it so that you could occupy the home?
So this is the thing. I know I could have eventually cleared it myself. I've done a few for family with
Mm-hmm.
sage and just
Mm-hmm.
affirmations. But I felt this attachment was so raw, so new, so heavy. I felt that there was still something possibly lingering. The other issue was there was a discrepancy in the backyard in terms of property line. So
It was just a
ultimately,
bad deal.
yeah, ultimately I decided to pass, and then I ended up, hearing that a family had purchased that house that night after me. So
Oh.
I said a prayer before I left, but yeah, that just sort of reaffirmed to me to not second guess. And this is what I'd like to say to everyone: is don't second guess those hunches. Become aware that's your soul or your higher aspect or guides nudging you, trying to get your
Yeah.
attention.
Right. Never ignore your gut feeling on things. And I'm a little confused, and we'll talk about this really quick because so if the ego part stays in the house and it's attached, I just, to clear that, I'm not sending that person to the light because they're already there. So I wonder, I mean, I don't know, I'm not an expert on clearing houses because I can clear them of entities that I can take to the light, but I've never had to deal with an entity where it was just ego based. And I don't know, because sage ain't going to do it. I don't think even holy water, I don't think is going to do it. I mean, I don't know. I'll have to talk to an expert on that kind of stuff. But what do you think?
They are in essence that ego, that shadow self is in and of itself attachment. So
An
it
energy.
like it wants to, so if it lived in that house for 30 or 40 years, it is attached to that house. or
And it's
or
hard to get it out, though, is what
it,
I'm saying.
it would be difficult. It's possible, but it's difficult, with saging and
Yeah, it doesn't really
clearing.
do it.
But the awareness, being aware of them, that sort of sends them, I want to say in some instances will send them packing, because they will try to make attachments sometimes if they see a vulnerability.
Well, like a
uh,
kid, like a
exactly,
child is what I'm
exactly.
thinking about. And I want to bring up really quick since we're talking about this, we only got about 5 minutes, but when you buy antiques, I don't know if people know this or not, but you got to be really careful when you buy antiques or if you buy furniture that's used or anything like that, because you guys, it all has an energy on it of somebody else and other things. So when you buy something, it's really important that you try to clear it, whether you use salt or holy water or sage or a prayer or whatever. Have you run across that kind of stuff too?
I have actually. A few weeks ago I went into an antique store in Niagara on the Lake with a friend, and we were going through one room which was a new room
Mhm.
filled with military memorabilia.
Oh, yeah.
And as I was leaving the room with her, I was commenting how amazing some of this stuff was. As we were leaving, I heard a big knock on the wall, and there was no one. This was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There was no one around us. It's a big open area. So I picked up on that right away, and I said, "Did you hear that?" And she said, "Yes, I did."
Oh, she did hear it. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't think people realize that when you do buy antiques, there comes an attachment with it, and you need to really be careful about those kind of things. What do you want to tell the audience? We've got a few more minutes. What would something you'd like to share with us that you think would be helpful to people today, Julia?
I would like to simply remind people that they are actually more powerful than they can imagine. Uh, be coming into 5D, into your own power, transcends the limitations of A, the thinking mind, and B, the physical body. This whole experience is spiritual in nature. And when you're operating through inner stillness, you realize everything, everyone is the same energy manifesting itself. We're in the body of source energy.
Mm.
So become clear on what you want. Right now, we're going through very challenging times in the
Yeah.
collective. And
Mhm.
this is a reminder to ascend, because we're headed towards a new earth. Because the way humanity has been operating in that lower frequency consciousness, it's not working anymore. And
Right.
it's time to evolve and ascend. So remember the power of your thoughts, the great
Yeah.
power in your words. And I'll say this, I'll leave everyone with this, is this reminder: the word desire literally means of the Father. So what you desire for your life is what source desires for you.
Yes.
Meditate upon that, reflect on that. It's a powerful reminder.
That's beautiful. And thank you. Yeah, I always tell people, establish a relationship with God.
Yeah.
God's my friend. I talk to him just like he's, hey, what do you think about this? And can you show me about that? And you have to ask and talk to him and have conversation. Don't be afraid. I think, our society has made us so that we don't converse with God like he's our friend, and he is. He just wants to help us. So I think that was really good information that you gave us. How can people get in touch with you? Give us some information if they want, do they get your book from Amazon? Do they go to your website? Do you have a website?
Sure. So I have a website,
Mhm.
JiulioConsiglio.com. So
Okay.
JiulioConsiglio.com. My
Okay.
books are available Amazon and bookstores right now. I'm
Okay.
on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Again, it's just my name.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on. I will say, you guys, don't forget to check out my website, nancyyearout.com, if you want a psychic reading. On Sundays, I'm doing News with Nancy, where I'll give you my take on what's happening with humanity. And that's going to be, I'll upload it sometime Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much for coming on today. I hope you'll come back again.
I would love to, Nancy. You're very gracious and very kind. It was beyond a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Oh, God bless you. Hey, you guys, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will see you next time. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Connect the dots and keep the motion. Can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road.
Hey, you guys, join me next week on The High Road for more stories filled with wisdom, love, and hope for our future. Have a fabulous week, and know that by staying on the high road, you will make it to your destination. Visit my website, nancyyearout.com, where you can book a private session to learn how to tap into your own abilities. And check out my YouTube channel. It's Nancy Yearout's High Road to Humanity.
You can achieve your goal.